Hey, what's up, guys? So, debt is a huge problem in America today. It's fact, it's probably a huge problem all around the world. Nobody likes to be in debt, but so many of us are in debt that it's ridiculous. And I want to help people get out of debt more effectively, more efficiently, and more quickly. And so, if you want to get out of debt, you're in the right place. There's a lot of reasons why people get into debt. In this video, we're going to talk about emergency expenses, things that come out of nowhere. We're going to talk about 3 of them. There's a lot more, but I'm going to talk about 3 emergency expenses that usually hit people and cause them to go into massive debt or have huge financial stresses and strains. And that usually leads to debt and other problems. So the most effective way to avoid emergency expenses is to have an emergency fund. It's important to have 3 to 6 months worth of money set aside in an emergency fund where you can use that money to pay for unexpected expenses as they come in. So let's talk about 3 of the major expenses that usually hit people out of nowhere and that are very common for a lot of people. So if one of these emergency expenses has hit you, I'm going to share with you a way to avoid it in the future so that it doesn't happen again, but also share with you a way to kind of get out of that debt the most efficient and effective way. So first of all, let's talk about medical expenses. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that when they get a medical insurance plan, they might have deductibles, and deductibles are out-of-pocket medical expenses. They might have a maximum out-of-pocket. That's another term that's in a lot of health insurance programs. So you need to be aware of what's going on with your medical insurance. Do you have a deductible, and how much is it? And is it per person? And what's the family deductible? Because in my plan, there's a per person deductible and a family deductible. So each person, in my particular example, the deductible is $5,000, but my family's deductible is $15,000. So if I'm going to set aside an emergency fund to pay for the deductible for my medical expenses, I need to have somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000 set aside to cover those out-of-pocket medical expenses. One of the things that you can do with medical bills especially is you can negotiate. A lot of these hospitals and doctor's office are willing to negotiate the bill. You can either get 12 months same as cash or longer, and where you can actually pay for that over time, or you can actually get a discount if you're able to pay for it all at once. I've seen up to 40 or 50% off before it goes to collections. Now, but you make sure that you negotiate those bills, and you make sure that you also get on a payment plan. Most hospitals and doctors are willing to put you on a payment plan and or settle or at least negotiate a price for paying it all up front. At least that's in my case. My wife has recently had a few medical expenses that we didn't expect come at us, and it's been kind of a stressor, I'll be honest with you. In fact, today when I was doing my bills, I didn't want to even look at the bills because I was just overwhelmed and stressed out with all the different things and potentials and how much money I was supposed to pay. And I had to call several of these places, and thankfully I was able to get on a payment plan, 12 months same as cash, which is really cool, which means I'm not going to pay any interest. I would rather pay 12 months same as cash and divide it over 12 months than to pay it off on a credit card, and now I'm paying interest. So if you can get 12 months or longer same as cash, or whatever you can get, make sure you get that opportunity to do that, because it's going to be worth it. Now, if you've gotten value out of this video so far, make sure you hit like and subscribe. So the second expense that I want to talk about is car repairs. Yep, that's right. We all know that car repairs are a big deal. You know, you don't want to be that guy on the side of the road who, in the middle of this rainstorm, that has their car break down and you're stuck. So that's absolutely no fun. One of the things that I would recommend is definitely having a sinking fund or an emergency fund specifically for car repairs. I actually do. In fact, I just did a video on watch this before you buy a car, and check out the card up here. You're going to want to watch that video, because in that video I talked to you about the true expenses of buying a car. And one of the expenses you should consider in your monthly allotment for budgeting out what your car payments are going to be or what your car costs are going to be is maintenance. So before you buy a car, do your homework. Make sure you're buying a car that doesn't have a huge expensive mechanic expenses. The parts are easy to find. You know, you want to call a couple mechanics and say, hey, look, I'm thinking about buying this car. Is it expensive to fix if it does break down? And then set aside some money every month to be able to put towards car repairs and mechanic expenses, because you definitely I would rather pay with money that I have in savings set aside for those particular expenses than to have to go into debt on a credit card and pay 20 or 30% interest. And then that just is a cycle downward of just stress and pain and suffering and death. And yeah, you don't want that. So I would suggest also, I don't know if this is true, I've seen a lot of these out there, and I haven't I've done a ton of research, but they have car insurance or car repair insurance. One of the companies, and I'm not a sponsor, there's no links in the description, but Car Shield is one that I've heard of is good. Put a comment below if you have Car Shield, if you know about Car Shield, if you've used Car Shield and it works. I'd love to hear more about it, because maybe I'll look into it for some of my cars actually. Let's say you're somebody that hasn't had an emergency expense happen. You haven't had a medical expense happen. You haven't had a car expense happen. Trust me, you will. So what I would do is I would prepare now, like get some car repair insurance, like Car Shield. Get a car repair sinking fund where you're putting money aside specifically for car repairs. So again, if you're getting a lot out of this video, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Don't miss that opportunity to hit like and subscribe. The best way to avoid emergency expenses is to hit the subscribe button. So I've heard. Anyways, so the last thing here is home maintenance. There's a lot of home maintenance expenses that can come up and actually ruin you financially if you're not prepared for them. Recently, actually this last year, I had my dishwasher go out and I was like, oh my gosh, how much is this going to cost? I don't want to, I mean, I have money too. By the way, I actually have a sinking fund that's called Home Repairs, Home Maintenance Sinking Fund. So every month I put money into my sinking fund or my emergency fund specifically for home repairs. Well, the good news is that I also pay for a home warranty. I pay every year $700 for the home warranty. Now, every time I call and ask them to come out and send a repair person, they will actually charge me $75. So yes, there is a cost to it still, but I know what it is. I can budget for it. If I know $700 a year, I can put in a monthly budget for that to build up that $700. That's paid for. If I know it's $75 per visit, I can have a few $100s in a savings account for any of those visits. So you can plan for it more effectively. When you can, yes, it might still hit you where you have to pay a little bit more than you thought, but at least you're not going to go into so much debt because it's completely unexpected, completely unplanned for. You weren't even ready for it. See, life has a way of giving you things that if you're ready for them, it's a lot easier to get through them. But you got to know that things are going to happen. You're going to have medical expenses, you're going to have car repair expenses, and you're going to have home expenses. Even if you rent, by the way, even if you rent, I think you're going to have some expenses potentially. So, but if you're definitely going to be a homeowner at some point in your future, you want to add in to your monthly mortgage or budget how much you want to set aside every month in addition to that for your home repair fund, because it's invariably it's going to happen. So you want to make sure you're setting aside money for home repairs. You want to get a home warranty as well. It was interesting because in the same week that my dishwasher went out, my stove also went out. And so I called the guy back. He said, yes, it's a different appliance, so it's $75 for the appliance. Well, ended up that my dishwasher had something else go bad, but he didn't charge me a second $75 for the next repair on the dishwasher. He just kind of added it all in for me. So sometimes you'll get a cool repair person that won't charge you over or extra. But it was crazy because in the same week, both my dishwasher and my stove went out and had to be repaired. And so I was grateful that I had the home warranty. I called them on the phone, they came out, they fixed it. Now, home warranties can cover all kinds of appliances. There's limits and other things to worry about, but it's worth it to me. I don't want to spend, if my water heater goes out or my air conditioning goes out. Thankfully, those things haven't gone out yet. But there may come a day when they do, and I need to be prepared for it. That's why I have home warranties. That's why I have a home repair sinking fund, so that I can be prepared for those types of expenses as they come up. So one of the great things that you can do to prepare for and plan for not getting into massive amounts of debt is to realize that life isn't always going to go as we plan. So you need to plan for those times when life doesn't go to plan. So that's why you have an emergency fund. That's why you have sinking funds, have a car repair fund, have a medical expense fund, have a home repair fund, have whatever else you might think of as an expense or a potential expense in your future. Have a fund that can feed that or fund that, so that at least when it comes or when it happens, you're not going to be as devastated, because you're going to have some preparation and some planning for that. So these expenses are going to come, and you can plan for and prepare for them. When you get into a car repair fund situation, negotiate with your mechanic. If you get into a home repair situation, negotiate with the plumber, negotiate with the electrician, negotiate with, I've actually have a neighbor who's an electrician, and I've just bartered with him. He's come over and repaired a few things in my house, and I've done some things for him. So I didn't have to pay him. So there's ways for you to be able to avoid having to use dollars and your money to be able to pay for these things. If you do get into debt, then there are some fantastic ways to get out of debt. And I have another video for you up here in the cards for you to check that out. So make sure you do what you can first to plan and prepare ahead. If you don't get the chance to do that because some medical expenses come, then definitely learn how to negotiate. If you get into a serious financial situation where you're in debt and you just can't find a way out, make sure you subscribe to this channel because I'm going to give budgeting tips, financial tips, coaching tips, and if you want to have me help you, that you can click the links in the description below. Hit me up at hello@financialselfreliance.net, and I'd be happy to see what we can do to help coach you along your journey to debt freedom towards financial independence. I hope you got a lot out of this video. If you missed the last video I produced, go ahead and check it out here. Subscribe to the channel up here and check out this video that YouTube thinks you might like. Until the next video, have a great day.